I think it's time to remember just how good Ja Morant truly is.
Morant. Oh! A jawbreaker!
But outside of the jaw-dropping highlights and plays that we've only seen a handful of players in NBA history make, Ja Morant isn't just a good young player. There was a point in time, not very long ago, when he was being considered the future of the NBA alongside Luka Doncic, with debates like this happening whilst Ja was only 22 years old. Now obviously, ESPN were doing ESPN things with a question like that, but at just 22, in his third full season, Ja Morant averaged 27 points and nearly 7 assists, finishing top 10 in MVP voting, making All-NBA, and leading the Grizzlies to a record of 56-26. That's the level of player Ja Morant was. Actually, let me correct that. That's the level of player Ja Morant is, because even after having a rough 2 seasons with a combination of off-court issues and injuries, there is absolutely nothing to suggest Ja isn't still one of the best players in the NBA, because despite the struggles he's had the last couple of years, he's still averaged 26 points and 8 assists over that period of time, making him one of 4 players to average at least 25 and 8 in that period of time. The other 3 being Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, and Trae Young. Pretty decent company. I mean, just look at this season where he only played 9 games, yet still delivered one of the most memorable moments of the entire season.
With a chance to win it in his return. Here goes Morant. He spins. Morant scores! And the timer expires!
And obviously that clip shows you the game winner, but it's the context around that game winner which makes it all the more special. Prior to Ja's return from suspension, the Grizzlies weren't just bad, they were flat out awful, winning 6 of those 25 games, ranking dead last for offense and 24th for net rating. So when Ja returned against a very good Pelicans team, expectations were not exactly off the charts. That didn't stop Ja from dropping 34 points and 8 assists on 50% shooting in his return game, absolutely taking over, dropping 27 points in the second half of that game. And just look at him on this play. With Biyombo setting the screen and Ja going downhill against Valanciunas, it's almost unfair how quickly he's able to spin around JV for the bucket. Or how about this time against a much smaller opponent in Alvarado? But it doesn't matter what size you are, if you are backtracking against Ja Morant in transition, you're completely at his mercy as he just hits that burst of speed before finishing, and it made no difference who was guarding him. How about one of the best defenders in the NBA, Herb Jones? No big deal as Ja hits a couple of between the legs crossovers before bumping into him and floating it in. Or in this play, using the Tillman screen to get off of Herb before the ability to just float and finish in midair that can't be replicated. All of which led up to one of the moments of the season. And it's easy to see plays like this and only focus on what he can do as a scorer, but let's not forget, he's one of the best playmakers in the NBA, using that incredible driving and handling ability to manipulate defenses at will. Look at him on this play get the ball out top. Biyombo sets the screen and watches Ja feigns as though he's going for the midi, but adjusts the pass in midair to find Bane in the corner. Not only is it the adjustment, but the pinpoint accuracy on the pass is just absurd. Speaking of pinpoint accuracy, how about his ability to squeeze this pass into Tillman with 2 defenders on him and Alvarado lurking in the paint? Ja has such a rare combination of breakneck speed and control. When you see him attacking a crowd of players at 100 miles an hour, your first thought is, oh, he must be out of control, but he seems to always make the right read. It's reminiscent of a guy like Russell Westbrook, but I don't think it'd be controversial to say Morant is in more control as a playmaker. Not saying he's a better player, but it's so rare to have that explosiveness and that poise, consistently making the right decisions when getting trapped, when getting double teams, when seeing a sea of defenders. So when you see him do things like this in just a 9-game sample last year, you'd think the consensus around him as a player would still be pretty high. Well, not exactly, with Bleacher Report predicting 8 future faces of the NBA, none of which were named Ja Morant. Or how about The Ringer ranking him 10th of the best players under 25 to build around, below the likes of Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, and Jalen Williams, all of which haven't come close to reaching the level Ja was at for multiple years in a row, particularly when it comes to the playoffs. Those are some good players, but over 19 playoff games, Ja Morant has averaged 27 points and 8.5 assists per game. And whenever I think of Ja Morant in a playoff setting, or just how good he is in general, my first thought goes back to the 2022 playoffs and Game 2 of the series against the Golden State Warriors. Following a close loss and a great performance from him in Game 1, the Grizzlies were on the verge of effectively losing all hope in the series if they were to go down 0-2 at home. That's when Ja had one of the greatest playoff performances you will ever see from a 22-year-old. The Warriors started the game with a very, very clear strategy. Treat Ja Morant like he's Ben Simmons. I mean, look at where Andrew Wiggins is standing on this play. Unfortunately for the Warriors, Ja is not Ben Simmons, and he took advantage of those early wide open threes. And once the Warriors started pressing him a bit more defensively, well, we saw plays from Ja that only he can make. Like here where Klay Thompson is in front of him, he drives left, spins right, and with Draymond waiting at the rim, look at the mid-air adjustment to lay it in. Watching Ja Morant is like a combination of a high jumper, gymnast, and NBA player all in one, because who else is doing that? And when the second half started, Golden State went back to the initial strategy. Let Ja make any shot that isn't in the paint. And just like in the first half, he obliged, knocking down a couple of threes in the third quarter, and once again, this forced the defense to press him just that bit extra, and Ja took advantage again, spinning off Curry on this play and having the ability to drop it in through the Draymond contact. And some of the shots he was making, he just made look too easy.
Morant, spectacular drive to the rim.
That is a swooping left-handed layup around a 6'6" defender at full speed, but when you watch it in regular time, it looks easy because of how fluidly Ja is flying through the air. And if one left-handed layup around a 6'6" defender wasn't enough, how about two? This time going around Klay Thompson and then finishing through Draymond Green. And at this point, he was so unconscious, so locked in, that nothing I could say would do it justice.
Morant looking for a runway. Now a step back. Morant. Yes, sir! Now he's got Poole. Under 2 minutes to go. The shake. Oh, Morant gets the roll. Morant. The drive. The floater. Ja Morant.
Some players, no, most players will go their entire careers without even making one shot like Ja made during the second half of that playoff game. But to do it play after play after play against a dominant championship team at 22 years old, not enough can be said about that performance. And I'm not sure why so many people are sleeping on the Grizzlies this season, when you consider they had won 50 games in back-to-back seasons prior to Ja only playing 9 games last year. And even in those 9 games he played, they went 6-3. But above all, regardless of accolades or success, the NBA is a better place when Ja Morant is playing basketball and doing things that only he can really do.